To simplify the difference between the direct tax and indirect, direct tax are those taxes that cannot be passed on. In its nature, it's like that the tax system is not designing a direct tax that can be passed. Why? Because, well, at first, there's no way for the taxpayer can predetermine. So therefore, there's no way for him also to pass on the said taxes. So by concept, it has to be understood that way. Kung ikaw ay estudyante, kailangan mo yun ma-understand na ganun yun. Pag hindi ma-predetermine because of its nature, like for example, talking about income tax. When you do selling of your services or your sale or your goods, you cannot determine how much is your taxable income. So there's no way also for you to determine how much if you are going to pass it on to the buyer. So that's the basic for try to understand about the direct. Direct is a tax that cannot be passed on. Now, on the other hand, well, the opposite is indirect. So therefore, indirect is can be passed on. Can be passed on. Well, again, as I said earlier, why? It is because you can predetermine the amount. While in the indirect tax, it can be. Here cannot be predetermined. In the indirect tax can be predetermined. So basically, that's the reason why I said that for VAT is 12% of selling price, while income tax is, let's talk about corporation, 30%, no, that's 25% of income tax, or sorry, taxable income. So I'll try here to demonstrate now why I said it cannot be predetermined. Here it can be predetermined. First of all, when you compute taxable income, you need to have sales, cost of sales, then some deductible expenses. You cannot project all of this, right, to arrive at taxable income. That's why this cannot be predetermined. Okay, that's I would like to emphasize. While on the other hand, the 12% of the selling price, the VAT, very simple. This is stock-based selling price. Selling price is, by its nature, can be determined, predetermined. So also the 12% on it, because the 12% is an ad valorem that is in proportion to the selling price. So therefore it can be predetermined, so therefore it can be shifted. That is also true if we're talking about the 3% tax. It's based on the selling price that can be predetermined ahead of, so it can be passed to the customer or to the buyer. So to answer this question, an importer pays specific duty, value-added tax upon bringing the goods to the country. So this is importation. So naturally, when you import an item, you have to pay excise tax, duties, and value-added tax before you remove that from the custom jurisdiction or premise. Now, which of the following statements accurately characterizes the VAT? In this scenario, particularly comparison to direct tax. Now, if you look into the choice A, what you will see is it said that the VAT is the direct tax because the importer is one of those who remits the payment to the government. But it also special tax because it applies only to imported goods. Does it make sense? Don't think so. Okay. Now, what makes it wrong to be indirect? It's because the tax, when the importer paid it and later sold, the buyer will pay also the VAT and the custom duties. Why? There's a law in there that the subsequent buyer of that importer, no, not necessarily a law. It's a logical that the importer will pass it on to the buyer for that. Of course, that's part of the cost of his importation or imported item. So the importer has to pass it to the buyer. So basically, that is an indirect tax. The VAT functions, letter B, is an indirect and general tax. It is indirect in the sense of what? Because statutory incidence that the legal obligation to pay is on the importer, yes, but the economic burden is passed on. Okay, take note of that, to the final consumer. So that's correct. I think that's clear in the statement of the choice B, option B. So I guess this is the correct answer. Letter C, the indirect tax, unlike with the VAT, a direct tax, unlike with the VAT, is one of the taxpayer is legally allowed to shift. It's not, yeah, that's an opposite. Direct tax cannot be shifted. That's why it's called direct tax. Okay, take note of that. Easy to identify which makes it the statement or the choice wrong. Letter D, both VAT and the typical direct tax like income tax are considered general taxes. Not sure what general taxes are because they are levied to support the government. Yeah, but I don't know if that is a general taxes. I don't know the term. It's the government general purposes. So it made them general taxes because it's general purposes. Not sure. Though only the VAT is classified as a specific tax. This one is, I'm not sure. The only term that we can encounter for the specific tax when it is applied as one of the classification of excise tax. I'm talking about the business tax, excise tax. Business, one of the business taxes, and excise tax can be ad valorem and specific. Okay, so this cannot be our choice, this cannot be also, but letter B is fine, is the best answer among these options. So I guess you understand the explanation earlier.